Yo, how's it going, guys? It's Loops here with another video. I know it's been quite a while. I'm so sorry. I've been pretty busy, just kind of dealing with the whole moving and whatnot, and just working. I have done a lot to the car since the last time I made a video. I'm actually about to get tuned pretty soon. Before I'm actually even able to get tuned though, I do need to install a turbo speed sensor. So that is what we're going to do today. I do have a Garrett G35 1050, and there's a specific kit for that turbo that Garrett sells, so I am going to be installing that today. I haven't seen any videos in regards to how to do a turbo speed sensor or how to install or wire one, so I thought at least I would make the video for you guys and just kind of show you how the whole rundown is. It's fairly simple. As far as I know, it's 3 wires, so it's one is going to be 5-volt constant, and then one's a ground, and then the other one's going to be the 5-volt signal, which goes out to the ECU or your gauge or whatever it is that you're using to monitor your turbo speed sensor. But yeah, the kit that I got, it is going to end up being just a regular Garrett speed sensor kit. There's no gauge included because I don't need a gauge. My Haltex download is going to be monitoring all that stuff for me. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and show you guys pretty much what it is that we're going to have in the box here and just go from there. Alright, so this is pretty much what you're going to find in there. So of course you're going to have your turbo speed sensor. That's what this thing is right here. And then you are going to have a wiring harness as well. So this is what you're going to be using to kind of just route the harness through to the car. There is no gauge on this one, so it's a speed gauge wiring harness. It's the same harness if you buy the gauge, it just has the gauge included. So we're gonna go ahead, pretty much install this whole thing. I'm gonna show you guys how to do it. I am on a standalone ECU, so I am using a plug and play harness with it as well. So it is gonna be a little bit different on my end. It's gonna be easier to wire it in because I already have my pins pretty much set up here. Just gotta put the pins on here, I guess, and then just plug them in, and then I'm pretty much good to go. So yeah, I'm gonna show you guys pretty much how to get this whole thing done. So first thing is first, you want to go ahead and locate the actual speed sensor port. So my turbo, you can see it right over here, so I'm gonna just zoom into it just real quick. This will be right there. So right there is gonna be that speed sensor port. So that's gonna be a 7mm. So you're gonna pretty much take this off, and then you're gonna pretty much install a speed sensor right in there. Make sure you have some oil to lubricate the O-ring, because you place the speed sensor in, there is an O-ring that seals it. You want to make sure there's oil on there. If not, you're gonna break that O-ring. But that is pretty much where that is going to go, and then we'll work on routing the harness. There's actually a spot somewhere down here where you can actually route a harness through. It just makes it a lot easier. I discovered it yesterday just running one of these flashlights through. I was kind of just flashing this all the way through the chassis, seeing if there's any leak through for light. And I ended up finding a little spot down there. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and take that off. That's gonna be 7mm, and then we're gonna oil up the O-ring and just get that thing installed real quick. It should be fairly easy. My speed sensor shouldn't be too hard. It's really gonna be the wiring that's the most difficult part of it. Alright, so I have my 7mm here. We're gonna go ahead and start loosening this piece up. To my understanding is that these actually they have like some type of thread locker on them. So the new bolt that's going to be supplied has thread locker on it. If you don't have a new bolt with the thread locker on it, I would suggest at least putting some thread locker on there. Doesn't have to be anything too extreme, but I would recommend just putting some thread locker to make sure that your speed sensor doesn't come out of place. Yeah, that would be really bad if you're boosting and your tune actually has like a speed sensor port where it's actually reading your turbo speed. You really don't want to overspeed your turbo, because they have an efficiency range, especially with the Garrett turbos. They have an efficiency range now to like how fast you can actually spool in as far as RPM goes. So you just want to make sure you don't overspool a turbo, because you can damage the turbo. So yeah, just like an FYI. Try to get this little plug out of here. It's a little difficult, I'm not gonna lie. All right, I'll be back. I'll get this thing off real quick. Alright, so now we have this little piece out. It's actually a lot harder to get this thing off, so you're gonna need a flathead. Obviously, make sure you don't break this thing inside of your turbo. That'd be the worst. I don't know what you would do at that point. Yeah, don't break this thing off in there. Just be kind of gentle with it. What I was doing was I was kind of like turning it and like kind of like wedging it in with like a flathead. So I was like wedging it and just moving it around. So that'll probably be your best bet here, just to kind of get this thing off. But yeah, with this thing off now, I'm going to be installing this one. So this is going to be the actual sensor. Like I said, there is an O-ring here, so you want to make sure you lube up the O-ring with some oil, and then pretty much just reinstall it. And then we'll go on with figuring out how to do this whole wiring harness situation. All right, so I'm going to go ahead, coat this thing with some oil. So you don't want to tear this O-ring, so that's why you coat it in oil. And then go ahead and stick this thing through. So now that speed sensor is in. So last thing I got to do here is put this bolt. I said this bolt, it has like some type of thread locker on the very end. As you can see here, it's that like orangey stuff there. So yeah, so make sure you have at least some thread locker in case you don't have another bolt you can use. So they supply it with the actual kit, so you should get another bolt with it. But in case you have to reuse yours, just put some blue thread locker, and I think that should be okay to hold it in there. So I'm gonna just put this in there, and then we're gonna wrap the harness through, and it's gonna be coming in through the actual passenger side here. So yeah. All right, and I'm not much about reading these like manuals or instructions, but I'm gonna go ahead, just read through this and make sure I have the wiring correct here for the actual harness. So I guess for safe measures, I guess I can take that off, take the turbo bar off, and then make sure that the actual compressor wheel is spinning freely. So let's see here. So here it is for the gauge connector. So I'm gonna show you guys here in just a second. The actual connector comes with like 3 pieces. So one goes to the actual sensor to the turbo, and then the other one goes to gauge connector if you have a gauge connector, and then the other one goes to your actual data logger or your standalone ECU, just whatever it is that you're using to log your stuff, which I'm gonna end up taping this off because I don't need the gauge connector portion of it. I need just the data log stuff. So that's what I'm gonna do there. But yeah, it does come in 3 ways. And then let's see here, this is gonna be for the gauge. So obviously we don't have a gauge, so that's not really what I need to look into. This right here is what I need to look into. So so for no gauge, so it tells you for data logging, connect the orange wire on the pigtail to a 5-volt source. So this is going to be your constant 5-volt power. So your orange wire is going to be constant 5-volt power. So that just goes wherever you just get power from. And then let's see here, your sensor output signal is going to be the green wire. So the green wire is what you're going to be plugging into when it comes to your actual either standalone or whatever it is that you're logging with. So green wire is for logging. And then I believe there's going to be a black one. So the black one is going to be the ground. Do not ground this to the chassis. Make sure you ground this to whatever your data logger is or whatever your standalone is. Yeah, they need to reference the ground off of the actual ECU if you're going to be wiring it into the ECU. Just make sure you don't put that ground wherever you have like a common ground, I guess, because like I said, the gauge or the sensor needs to reference with the ground signal off of the ECU to get an accurate reading. If you don't do that, you're going to have a lot of issues. So just make sure whatever sensors you wire into a ground that goes to the ECU. That's always going to be the case there. So yeah, so we're going to go ahead and yeah, I think this is fairly simple. We're going to go ahead and start plugging this in. The red wire looks like it's not used. I don't know what the red wire is for. Let's see here, it's a 12 volt. Oh, that's going to be for your gauge. So that's what powers up your gauge, since your gauge runs off of 12 volts and the sensor runs off of 5 volts. So you don't need the red wire, so I'm going to take that off as well. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to loom the harness through the passenger side. There's a spot over here, like right behind the turbo, where you can route it through. Let me see if I can get you guys kind of a closer look here for you guys with GCs, because I know not many people kind of go through like the ins and the outs of where you can like wire things through with these cars. But there is going to be a hole. You can't see it from here, but there is going to be a hole back over there. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it's gonna be like way back over there. Let's see if I can try to get this thing focused. Give me just a sec. Okay, now I'm able to get this thing in focus. There's gonna be a spot way back over here, past this like little external wastegate. It's gonna be like right under here. You're gonna see when you push your wire through or you push your flashlight through, you're gonna see an opening of light right here. So you're pretty much just gonna push this whole thing through right here, and you guys will see right now. I'm gonna go ahead and put this flashlight through so you guys can see where exactly it is that this thing goes. So yeah, it's not too bad. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and I'm going to show you how it looks. All right, so there's the flashlight right there, so you can see it just kind of hanging through. Yeah, and I have a flashlight on, so that's going to be the very tip right there. Sorry, it's like super hard to focus in such a tight area like this. But yeah, there's a flashlight, and like I said, it routes all the way through the back here. It's like right under, yeah, right under the kind of like the wastegate section. So that's what I'm going to route through. I'm going to make sure that it doesn't get caught up on anything. So I'm going to route the wire all the way around this way. That way there's no heat right by the actual pigtail, and then just plug it into the speed sensor harness. So yeah, should be pretty simple. We'll see how it goes. And of course, before we get started, this is going to be the side of the harness here that is going to be for the speed sensor. So I'm going to show you guys how this whole thing looks here. So you have three pigtails, essentially, or three connectors, I should say. This one right here goes straight to your actual speed sensor. So this one just connects to your pigtail to the speed sensor. And then here you have the other end, which is going to have two separate wires. So this is going to be the one that you're going to pretty much use for your data logger or your gauge. So they both have the same ends here. Like I said, you pretty much connect this piece to whatever end it is that you're going to use or going to want to use for your data logger or ECU. And obviously, on my case, I'm going to tape off the red wire, so I'm going to make sure I do that. That is pretty much it as far as that goes. So we're going to go inside. I'm going to loom this thing through. I believe I have enough space to loom it through, so we're going to see. So we'll see. And this right here is where I have my whole mess. But yeah, pretty much the hole that I'm using is going to be that hole right there. So you can route wires and stuff through there. I'm hoping that I can route this thing through. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to, so we'll see. We're going to give it a shot real quick, and I'll be right back. So as you guys can see, that worked like a charm. Literally just it was such a good fit. I didn't have to even like cut the hole open like bigger or anything like that. So that's them through. I'm gonna go to the engine bay side and connect it to the actual speed sensor harness for the actual speed sensor. So yeah, let's go around and let's plug that thing in real quick. Oh yeah, for those of you that don't have one of these, this is one of those like contraptions where you like press the end and it shoots out like a claw. So you can grab whatever it is that you need. I like using these to kind of grab wires through when they're like way back in the actual like engine area, just because it just makes life easier. That way you don't have to actually put your hand on there. So yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and just grab that thing real quick. All right, now that I have this thing fished through, we're gonna go ahead and plug in the actual sensor to it. Let me move this light out of the way. All right, that's now plugged in. I am going to let's see here. I think it might be better if I route my speed sensor harness through this side right here. I'm probably gonna route it through like right under this coolant line just to make sure it keeps it in place there. So I'm probably just gonna do that real quick and just finagle that thing around. All right, so I have the wire connected. So that's all connected now. So now all I have to do from here is pretty much worry about what I gotta do inside. So yeah, it's all the way back here. So yeah, you can barely see it. It's touching the wastegate a little bit, but I'm gonna make sure I zip tie it off, and that way it doesn't actually get heat up and melted. So we're gonna go back inside, and I'm gonna wire up the actual harness here. And I'll show you guys. It's not too hard, especially since I'm on a standalone. Everything's already set up. So yeah, you guys will see here in a sec. All right, so this is the portion that's going to be pretty fun. I've actually grown to really like wiring a lot now. I actually just did my harness over here. This is going to be a DTM connector, so I just swapped over to DTM just because these door wiring harnesses are not actually insulated or like weather sealed. So these DTM connectors are weather sealed. I was having issues with like my door lock's not working, and then my windows not wanting to roll up and down. It was the same thing with the other side. I had a lot of wires. I had like 8 wires total out of like the 48 that I rewired. Yeah, like pretty much 8 wires were like completely corroded. And the reason why I have electrical tape here is because there's some wires that I didn't need to use because I have aftermarket speakers, and I ended up using different wires, which are going to be these blue ones here for the speakers.
So I have electrical tape there, but yeah, I mean, you don't need a solder or anything like that. All you need is pretty much just going to be a crimper like this. Just make sure you have the correct crimper, and then make sure you have pins, and then that should be pretty much it. They're fairly easy to do. It's very time consuming, and that's the problem with doing connectors. It's very time consuming. 48 wires, it took me like, I don't know, 2 hours, 3 hours. It's worse when you get closer to the actual door side of the harness. The closer you get to the door, the better, because you need to eliminate all the connectors in between the harness. There's like 2 connectors that splice in between here from the factory, so it's just better if you get as close to the actual harness to the door as possible and as close to the harness here. That way you weather seal completely between these 2 harnesses. But yeah, I've really grown to like wiring a lot, and like, here's the thing. So when it came to like me and wiring, I was very discouraged when it came to wiring anything. It just wasn't one of those things that I like to do at all. And I've really grown to really like wiring and really like tidy things up and make everything as neat as possible. So wiring is kind of one of those things that I don't think y'all should be discouraged of. If you guys have a multimeter and like a, you know, like a power probe, I mean, that'll make your life a lot easier. But it's not something I think that people should get discouraged of or, you know, be intimidated of. It's pretty easy to do, especially when you're rewiring harnesses. Like, just follow the wires together. But when it comes to like installing stuff, I can understand why people get very discouraged. You know, obviously when you have actual instructions or whatever, PDFs on like wiring and whatnot, that makes your life a lot easier. So if you have those in handy, it'll make your life a lot easier. And the thing I like about Haltech is that they provide all the wiring instructions and everything, and all the wire colors, like what they do, what pins and whatnot. So yeah, it's just, Haltech just makes it so much easier. So that's what I'm saying. Like, for you guys, it's going to be a little bit different if you guys wire into a different standalone, but for me, I have everything already pinned out. And with like the custom pins I did for my safeties, I just went ahead and just like marked what pins in the ECU PNP harness. I just marked where exactly I put those pins in, so the tuner knows what pins to look for when it comes to looking for my safeties, like my oil pressure, oil temp, and then my my flex fuel. So obviously I'm gonna have speed sensor now as well, the turbo speed sensor. So that's gonna be another safety I'm having in here as well, which is why I'm wiring this thing in, is just for safeties. I just want to protect the engine as much as possible, protect my investment. Essentially, that's why I'm doing all this. Is just, the thing about standalones is like, you really do it to protect your investment more than anything, because your standalone is going to read everything. It's going to protect your engine. It's going to do everything you can't in the moment. So realistically, the reason why you have gauges is to monitor what is going wrong and what's going right with the car. With the standalone, you kind of don't really need those gauges anymore. Although yes, they are useful. You don't really need them anymore, because your standalone will do everything for you at that point. It'll shut your engine off, cut timing. I mean, regular ECUs do that, but the standalone would do it to a crazier extent to protect your actual investment and your build. So yeah, just my 2 cents on that. Realistically, with standalones, I mean, I guess you can do standalones whenever you want, but I think you should really do it when your power, your computing power isn't sufficient enough to actually do what it is that you want it to do. That's when I really suggest a standalone. I mean, if your ECU is doing just fine, like handling the power that you're trying to put down and, you know, monitoring everything, like, I think you'll be fine. But the only thing, the plus about a standalone, of course, is that it monitors everything for you and it acts for you. Instead of you having to turn your engine off, your standalone will do it for you, so on and so forth. So yeah, let me show you guys how like my whole harness here is set up. Like I said, it's gonna be pretty simple for me. For you guys, it's gonna be a little bit more difficult if you guys don't have a Haltech ECU and harness. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and just get this thing done real quick. It's fairly simple. It's just gonna be 3 wires for me, and then I just block off the red wire with some electrical tape. So yeah, let's get to it. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use, out of these 2, there's one that angles and there's one that goes straight. I'm gonna go ahead and just use the one that's straight. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna plug this pigtail in right here. Just make sure that is correct. So that's plugged in. Let's see here. So yeah, green wire signal, orange wire is going to be 5-volt power, and then black is going to be ground to your ECU or your data log or whatever it is that you're using. Like I said, yeah, the red one we're not going to use. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the crimping process. It's pretty simple. Yeah, it's just, wiring is just so much easier for me now that I've learned the tricks, the ins and the outs. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this thing done in on camera for you guys, so you guys can see how it is that I crimp these wires and pretty much go from there. All right, to start off here, since I don't need to use the red wire, I'm just going to just cut this like so. I don't need this anymore, so I'm gonna do that. And just to kind of isolate that wire, I'm gonna go ahead and use some heat shrink here. This one has like a glue that insulates it, so that's why I'm using this type of heat shrink. I'm gonna get these wires away, and just yeah, use the heat shrink and just get this thing all insulated here. So I just want to make sure that should be okay. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and just do one more pass just for good measure, and that should be good. So yep, you can see the glue kind of coming out of there, so that is nice and insulated now, so I'm not gonna need this anymore. So cool. So when it comes to the Haltech harnesses, is you have these pins right here, which are going to be specific for the type of harness you're going to be using. So for example, these pins right here go into these style connectors. So you have different style pins for whatever style connector you're going to have. So these pins will work with this connector. So it's my auxiliary connector for any other sensors I want to wire in and whatnot. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and start actually pinning them. I believe, I'm not sure. I was looking at the harness. I think I'm going to have to splice this one into one of the 5 volts coming from the auxiliary harness, and then this one I can just put as a ground, I think, or I might have to splice into a ground. This one I can for sure just input into one of the pins. So I'm gonna go ahead and start with this green one here. So I'm gonna start by pulling off this green little insulation here. You really don't want to have too much wire hanging, so I'm gonna go ahead and just cut it right here. That is pretty much cut down to the length that we need. There's like a specific size that you want to have when it comes to actually doing these. So yeah, it's just when you start doing it, you'll kind of just know. So the green one's going to be signals. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna get one of these, kind of just cut it a little bit. All right, so there's that. Pretty much the way that you do this is you're gonna put this wire through like this. I think I may have cut it a little short. I'm gonna make it just a little bit. I'm gonna take a little bit more off, just to make it just, I don't know, just kind of fill up the space a little bit more. I'm sure I'll be fine with the length I have it at. I think that's the proper length, but I'm gonna go ahead and just give it just a little bit more wiggle room. All right, I have the signal wire pretty much to the length I want it now. I'm more comfortable with this. So pretty much, so you have this wire here. So let's see if it will focus. I don't think it will. Well, anyways, it has 2 jaws. It has one jaw right here in the back, one jaw on the back, and then one jaw on the front. The jaw on the front is going to be strictly for your electrical connection, and then the one in the back is going to be for your insulation. So pretty much what you're going to do is, let me kind of just show you guys just real quick. You're going to get your wire. You're going to put the insulation on the insulation jaw, and then you're gonna put the actual wire under the wire jaw like so, and then pretty much you're gonna get your crimper and crimp it down, and that is pretty much how that goes. It's not that hard. It can be kind of, difficult doing it at first, but you'll learn over time, and you want to make sure you have the correct crimpers as well to do this job. Yeah, so it's not too difficult to get this thing done. But yeah, that's pretty much how that's going to look. And the thing is, like, you want to make sure you use the correct jaw, and you want to make sure you're using the way that it's supposed to be going in as well. You want to make sure, because these have like little points here, make sure at the pointy end is facing down towards the side with the wire, and that's where people get kind of confused. So for example, this is going to be going right here on the E, and that is how that's going to be set up here. So just kind of want you guys to have a better look here. All right, so that is how that goes in the jaw. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna slide the green wire through. Slide this thing through here. I want to make sure none of the cables get caught elsewhere. Cool. So this green wire is all the way through. The insulation's where I want it to be at, and then you just pretty much just clamp down from there. So from there, clamp all the way down. And that is crimped correctly. You want to make sure that you can pull on it and that it won't go anywhere. And then you're going to do your second one. So on me, if I use the tiniest jaw, I'm going to use the second tiniest from there since it is insulated. So this one's going to have the D jaw like so. And then that is going to be a properly crimped wire. So like I said, wiring, I'm really starting to like wiring a lot. So this to me is just very satisfying to do. And once you get pretty much whatever you need to get set up, you're pretty much going to put your pins in wherever they need to go. I'm not going to do that just yet. I'm going to figure out where exactly this thing lands on the actual connector. The same thing with the ground and the power wire. So yeah, that is wiring for you guys. That's pretty much it. It's fairly simple, especially when you have the right tools. Man, just having the right tools just makes life so much easier. But yeah, I am gonna see how the actual pinout looks for the auxiliary connector here, because that is what we need to pretty much wire this thing into. So yeah, so I'll be right back. All right, and as you guys can see here, this is going to be essentially the pinout for my Haltech here. So it pretty much will tell you what each pin is for. So this just makes life just so much easier. If you can find wiring diagrams for where exactly you're going to wire your stuff in, it'll be very helpful. So for example, let's see here, I'm going to try to do this while my phone. So pin number 1 is going to be a 5-volt reference, or your 5-volt DC sensor supply. So my orange wire, which is going to be the 5-volt power, is going to be going straight to pin number 1. And then I'm going to need to use an SPI input. That's another thing that you guys are going to have to get into is like SPI and AVI inputs. AVI is like anything for like a coolant temperature sensor, oil temp, oil pressure, just one of those simple sensors. Flex fuel is going to be SPI, and any speed sensor is going to be SPI. So I need to make sure that I am wiring this thing into an SPI input. So pin number 1 is going to be my 5-volt reference, my supply. So that is going to be a free pin in there, and I can just plug it in. So I'm going to go ahead and get that wired in. So it's looking like it's going to be pretty simple for me. I can just pretty much just pin them in. And then I can use pin number 4 as my signal ground for the actual ECU here. So that's going to be a signal ground for input sensors. So this is an input sensor, not an output. So just be careful when you're reading through these things, because you see here it says spare output on these two. You want to make sure you're putting them into inputs, because you're inputting information into your ECU, not outputting information from the ECU out. So yeah, so SPI is going to be the input I'm going to be using. This is one you can use for flex fuel or just anything for SPI. That's why it says optional flex fuel input. It does not have to be flex fuel. It doesn't have to be flex fuel. That's the beauty about standalones, is that you can pretty much put your things where you want as long as they are the same signal, and pretty much go into the computer and you can edit out how it is that you're gonna be reading that sensor. So yeah, so pin number 1 is gonna be my 5-volt supply for power. Pin number 4 is going to be my signal ground, and it looks like my SPI is going to be pin number 7, and those should be open pins if I'm not mistaken. So we're going to just double check that real quick. This right here is going to be the connector. So this actually has open, so it starts from 1, which is going to be right here on the top right side, to I think this is 8, and then it's going to do the rest from there. So you have 1 here, and that's going to be like, so it's going to be, you're going to count it off from here. So for those of you guys that are pretty new to wiring, that's the main reason why I'm doing this, just to kind of help you guys out. So this is going to be the first pin. This is going to be where my pin goes for the supply. And then I need to find pin number 4, which is going to be this empty one right here next to the yellow and purple one is going to be right next to that. And then I do need to find my flex fuel, which I can't remember which one it was, or SPI. It's obviously not flex fuel, but it's going to be the SPI input. But yeah, I can go ahead and just plug these things in there, and then just plug it straight into the actual plug and play harness here, and then plug it straight into the ECU, and that will be set to go. And as you guys can see here, this is going to be like this right here is going to be all my safeties I wired in. So all this is just safeties, and I pretty much pinned them into the actual harness where I needed to, and I removed pins where I didn't need them. Like I don't have AVCS, so I was able to just delete and take those pins out and put SPIs in there. Since AVCS solenoids or sensors, they're actually SPI inputs, so I was able to just delete those. But yeah, that is pretty much that. I'm gonna go ahead and put the pins on these other two, and then I'm gonna go ahead and just just plug them in. So it's that simple. It's not as hard as you guys probably think it is. It might be pretty daunting, like I said, when you first get into it, but it's not that hard. So I'll be right back. I'm gonna put the pins on these two now. And then what I like to do is I like to document where I am gonna be putting the pins. So I'm gonna go ahead and document where I'm gonna put the pins real quick. So pin number 1 is going to be my 5-volt reference for the sensor. So turbo speed is going to be, let's see here, pin 1 auxiliary, and then my turbo speed, let's see here, ground is going to be pin number 4 auxiliary. So turbo speed ground is pin 4, and then we'll verify that I'm getting the power here in just a second as well. Pin 4 auxiliary, and then SPI is going to be pin number 7 in the auxiliary. Cool. So I have that all marked now on my phone on how that's all set up. So now I'm going to go ahead and start pinning it through. So I just disconnected it just to make it easier on me. The same thing with this. So we're going to go ahead and start pinning these things through. So I'm just going to just double check. No, it's never a bad idea to double check everything. So pin number 1 is going to be 5-volt sensor supply. So pin number 1, and it has little numbers and whatnot as well. It has them on the back right here. So just gonna double check. This is be number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and that says number 8 on there. 9. Cool. Yep, I'm reading this correctly. So, so the actual sensor supply is going to be this orange one. I'm just going to go right in here. Let's see here. I just want to make sure I'm putting it in correctly. I think I'm gonna have to undo the log tab. I think there is a log tab under here that I have to undo. Let me undo the log tab. I'm gonna pin these in real quick, and I'll be right back. All right, so this is the turnout. I had to go a different route. For some odd reason, the pins were just not wanting to go into the auxiliary connector, so I just went ahead and just spliced them into the actual harness. So as you can see here, just spliced them in here. Yeah, it came out really good. Came out super clean. So just ended up doing that. Of course, I have my other wires here as well for my safeties. So this one goes into the standalone. So that's what this little connector is for. At some point, this will be plugged in. But that is pretty much how that came out. Of course, I had my lighter, freaking using heat shrink and whatnot. But yeah, it came out really, really good. Yeah, I'm satisfied, happy with it. Sucks that the actual connector wasn't working, but it is what it is. It ended up working out, so I'd say that is a win in my book for sure.
And while we're here, let me actually show you guys what's on you with the car here. So I'll start with the engine bay. Let's see here. So as far as the engine bay goes, I have new alternator on the car, so that's a DC power alternator. I also have a new intercooler piping that was made for my car. Fits a lot better now. Yeah, I mean, the pipe cuts are just beautiful. It is 3-inch now, so 3-inch intercooler piping. It goes from 2.5 here, and then it transitions over to 3-inch. So that is that there. As far as like fueling goes, I have a flex fuel sensor now, so that is all wired in there. I did the wiring harness as well for that. I do have a radium fuel damper as well, so that is also new with the car. Obviously now we have that speed sensor wired in, and I think that might be it. I had to swap out my radiator because the other one that I had in there was leaking. Yeah, I think that is pretty much it for what we got under the hood. Yeah, I mean, pretty straightforward stuff here. So I'm gonna show you guys what's new with the interior. That's gonna be the biggest thing, is just gonna be the interior. And then moving on is going to be the interior. Like I said, this is the biggest portion of what is new with the car, as y'all can see, I do have a Haltech digital dash in the car now. And I do have a CAE shifter. Man, that thing just feels awesome. I forgot to mention as well that I did end up putting a triple disc XD clutch in here, so that is pretty much new. But yeah, let me show you guys what's really special about this shifter. So this one has self-centering capabilities, so it's actually very useful when it comes to racing. So for example, that's first, you let go, it centers itself to neutral. Same thing if you go to second gear, it centers itself to neutral, you just push forward, and that's third, and that's fourth, fifth, sixth. So yeah, this shifter is freaking awesome. It feels amazing. Like, yeah, that thing is just, yeah, that shit's awesome. So yeah, CAE shifter, and then the digital dash. I don't have it on right now, of course. I don't have my battery plugged in, but yeah, digital dash is wired in, so that thing looks amazing when it is powered on. And that is pretty much it for the interior. Of course, I updated my harnesses for the doors. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it in here. Yeah, I'm pretty much done with what I needed to do today, so we'll go ahead and cut on out of here. And there you guys have it. That is pretty much how to install a turbo speed sensor. It's fairly simple. Like I said, it's just a 5-volt voltage, ground to your ECU or data logger, and then it's going to be your actual signal coming out from the sensor. So it's super simple. It would be a lot better if your actual pins worked with your actual connectors. I don't know what was going on with that, but for some reason they just weren't plugging in, so I just didn't want to deal with it. I should have just splicing into the plug and play harness. Honestly, it's really not even all that bad, just splicing it in. So yeah, so that is pretty much it as far as that goes. Hopefully you guys learned something new. I didn't see anybody wiring these things in or have any information on wiring them. Like I said, your turbo, when it comes to installing a speed sensor, it can differ. Some of them already have the port built in, like my G series did, and some of them don't. So I would look into seeing if you already have a port built in, or if you don't. I know Borg Warners, you might have to like drill a hole into them. But yeah, that is pretty much it, guys. I appreciate you guys so much for watching, and please have a great day, and y'all take care. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.